Hi, I'm Ethan Green from NoSleeplessNights.com, and in this video I'm going to be talking about 7 different weighted blankets. Now, with weighted blankets there's quite a lot to talk about, even conceptually, and about choosing them before I even talk about each of the individual ones. So I'm going to try and give some brief personal answers to some of the key questions that I know people have, and then we'll look at each of them in turn. If you're not interested in knowing my opinion about weighted blankets in general, then please skip forward a couple of minutes and you'll find the reviews of each one, or you'll also find the timestamps in the description below, so you can skip ahead a few sections if you want. So first question to think about is, do they even work? Now, this is a bit of a tricky question to answer. There is some research out there that says that they do help with sleep or anxiety, but it's not like there's an enormous wealth of research. It's just a few bits and pieces here and there. So I think personally it's more of a personal thing, and I think for me and my wife as well, I've been talking to her a lot about it and her views on it. I think that great for relaxation. There's definitely something that we feel that they help with on that front. For sleep, I think it very much depends on the individual and what causes your sleep problems anyway. Maybe a weighted blanket is going to be no help at all. Maybe it'll be just what you need. So again, it's a very much a personal thing. Now, the next question is, do they sleep hot? Are there cooling weighted blankets? Are some better than others? Now, I think this is a very easy question to answer in some respects, which is that there is no such thing as a cooling weighted blanket. It just doesn't exist. Any blanket that you put on top of you is always going to make you feel warmer than you did without the blanket. Now, some of them are definitely more breathable than others. I think that when they have a thick, minky kind of polyester outside cover, then it's definitely going to be warmer than one that uses cotton and doesn't have so much fiber fill in the pockets as well. So really, I think the material can be breathable, and I think it can be less warm than others, but it can't be cooling. So that's something to bear in mind. Now, what about choosing the weight? This is also a key question that people have. There are two approaches to this. One is that you choose 10 to 12% of your body weight, and that's been the standard approach for quite a long time and the one that most people talk about. However, it doesn't work for everybody in some respects, because if you're in between weights, weighted blanket manufacturers don't create a 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 pound and onwards weight. They have 10 and 15 and 20, 25. Some of them have individual weights, but it's not that common. So if you're in the middle, you then need to decide yourself whether to go down a bit or up a bit. And that's going to be a very much a personal choice. For me and my wife also, going down weight is better than going up. But again, maybe you would prefer the extra weight that you have on top of you. Now, the other approach is that you have a set weight for each square foot. And this is something which a couple of manufacturers have started doing recently, and they claim that people enjoy that more than having a particular weight based on your body size, because, I can see some logic in that. If you're very short or very tall, but you have a particular weight or a different weight, then that's going to mean that you have maybe the same weighted blanket, but on a smaller surface area of your body. So I can kind of see some logic to that. Do you need a cover? Well, some blankets like the Bearaby Napper and the Layla are one piece, so there's no cover anyway. Others come with a pre-attached cover, and so you just choose the style and the material that appeal to you. In some cases, you have to buy the cover separately though, and actually, if you're a hot sleeper or on a tight budget, then you could just get the main weighted blanket and skip the cover to save some money. However, one major benefit of having a cover is that you can just wash that instead of having to stuff a heavy £25 blanket into your washing machine. Another thing to think about with the cover is that that's where the extra softness is often generated, if it has like a soft minky exterior or a cotton or whatever it might be. And the sensory nodes that a lot of them have as well, like these two here, that's done in the cover, not the blanket itself. What about the internal weight? Well, in pretty much every case these days, it seems to be glass microbeads or hypoallergenic glass microbeads, not plastic pellets, which is the common marketing phrase that they use. But actually, I haven't been able to find any that use plastic pellets recently. I know that there are some out there, and perhaps the older manufacturers or some of the cheaper manufacturers, but all the ones in this review use glass microbeads. So when they say that they're special because they use glass microbeads, kind of not really that special, because they all seem to these days. But it's still worth checking if you're going to use one that isn't in this video. However, there is an exception, which is the Bearaby here, which doesn't have any beads at all, just has a cotton design to it. But I'll come to that when I talk about the Bearaby in its turn. So with those questions in mind, let's take a look at the first blanket. Okay, let's start off with the Baloo weighted blanket. What I really like about this one is that it's very breathable, and that's why it's my personal favourite at the moment. My wife's also a really big fan of this one, and that's because it feels soft and smooth on the skin, and she likes the elegant design. So let's take a closer look. The Baloo uses a premium cotton, which feels very soft, and I like how it has small double-stitch pockets, which improves the durability and the weight distribution of the glass microbeads. The pockets contain minimal fibre filling, which is a key reason it's so breathable. The Stitching is consistently good across the whole blanket, and I like the attention to detail that's gone into the construction. On this size, there are 6 strong loops and ties, but I do think 8 would have been a bit better to keep the cover in place. Unlike most weighted blankets, the Baloo uses wooden buttons instead of a zip, which looks nice aesthetically. The only cover option they have at the moment is French flax linen. I personally really like the natural feel of that, but my wife does say she would have preferred cotton. It's worth noting that all the materials are Architect certified, and conveniently you can machine wash and dry both the external cover and the internal weighted blanket. When it comes to relaxation during the day and the evening, the Baloo is a great choice because it's so breathable and it looks good too. But at the same time, I can imagine the plain white cotton and minimalist look might feel like it belongs more in a bedroom for some people. It comes in set sizes rather than having the same weight across different dimensions. So at the moment they have a 12-pound twin, 15 and 20-pound queen and a 25-pound king. And the one I'm using is the 20-pound queen size. As always, the price varies by size. Mine was just under $170, so it's not a budget weighted blanket, which by the way I will cover later in the video. I do think the cover is a little expensive at $99, so combined it makes it one of the most expensive options, but you can just use the internal blanket and save some money. They have a 30-day returns window, which is pretty standard. However, they offer a lifetime craftsmanship warranty, which is pretty exceptional considering many don't offer any warranty at all. As for sleep, the Baloo is a great choice because it's so breathable and it looks elegant. I also like how well the weight is distributed and how it hugs your body nicely. And for colder months, you can use it on top of or in between your own bedding to add a little extra warmth. So overall, this is a really good weighted blanket. Admittedly, it's not a cheap option, but the quality of the craftsmanship, the soft feel, breathability and aesthetic design make this a great choice. Next up, we have the Bearaby. Now, this is one which is a bit of an outlier when it comes to weighted blankets because they haven't done the whole thing of using microbeads on the inside and filling it with thousands of microbeads. Instead, they've gone for this giant woven cotton. So there's no internal filling, it's literally just cotton weave. And it looks and feels great. So let's take a closer look. Bearaby Napper has a lovely soft feel to it. They use 95% organic cotton and 5% spandex. And the weave actually has a little stretch to it whilst being very durable. As I said, there's no synthetic filler, and it's these chunky layers of hand-knitted cotton weave that manage to create all that weight. It's great that you can machine wash and dry the Bearaby, but it does weigh a lot when you pull it out of the washing machine. When it comes to using a weighted blanket on the sofa for relaxation, the Bearaby is definitely one of our favourites, and my wife always says this is the one for the sofa, just because it looks beautiful aesthetically. And importantly, it feels relaxing to sit or lie under. In terms of the options, they have 3 different weights for adults at the moment, 15, 20 and 25 pounds. Interestingly, they avoid large sharing sizes and only make them for individuals, so mine's a 20-pound blanket and it's 40 by 72 inches. It also comes in 6 different colours. Recently, they've added a smaller 8-pound kid size too, with 4 different colour choices. The Bearaby is one of the most expensive weighted blankets because of all the craftsmanship involved. Mine was just under $260. They have a 30-day returns period, but no extended warranty. So yeah, make sure you look after it. Mine's still doing well though, it's lasted 9 months so far. As for sleep, I think like the Baloo, the breathability makes this a fantastic choice for hot sleepers and warmer weather. But in cold weather, you probably want to use it on top of some warmer bedding. I also really like how well it hugs your body, more so than any of the other weighted blankets I've tried. So overall, I think this is a great choice. It's breathable, made with sustainability in mind, and it just looks good. But the high price point and the lack of a warranty is something to consider if you're on a tighter budget. Next up, we have the Luxome weighted blanket. Now, this is the first company that I'd personally seen that's broken away from the 10% body weight rule, and they've worked out an average per square foot by testing their blanket weights on different age groups. And so they say that this is an average that most people like. So if you're not quite sure about choosing based on your body weight, or you're not quite sure about the 10% rule, then perhaps this is one that will suit you. So let's take a closer look. The Luxome has various different cover options, but mine here has a smooth minky on one side that feels very soft. The reverse side is a 300 thread count organic lyocell bamboo, which feels a little cooler on your skin. To remove the cover, there's a very subtle zip that's well hidden. It actually takes a while to find it. And on this blanket, there are 12 ties and loops, which is a good number to keep the cover nicely attached. The stitching is strong, but I do think it could have been finished a little bit neater. The small issue I had is that the loops are actually quite small, so it's slightly fiddly to attach the ties. By the way, here's a good technique to attach the cover. You just lie it flat on top of the blanket, attach all the ties, and then put your arms inside, grab the opposite corners and reverse the whole thing. The weighted blanket itself uses glass beads and polyester filler batting, which actually seems to do a really good job of keeping the beads evenly spread, despite the relatively large 6-inch pocket size. The 233 thread count cotton seems very robust, but it's not the softest. One point I really like about the Luxome is that both the internal blanket and the external cover can be machine washed and dried. I think the Luxome feels cozy enough and looks good with a cover, so it's one that I'd happily use on the sofa while relaxing. So let's take a closer look at the different weights they decided on. Here you can see that they have 8, 15, 18 and 30 pound weights. The blanket size also increases accordingly, so you've got the 8 pound for kids and I personally use the 18 pound. And my wife and I both find that that weight works nicely. They also have several different covers to choose from, including sensory dots if you like that style. The price varies by the size and the cover you choose, ranging from under $100 for the smallest up to around $250 for the largest, so it's not exactly a budget weighted blanket. They have a 30-day returns policy, but you must include the original bag if you want your money back. And there's no extended warranty either, like the Bearaby, which is a bit of a shame, but it should be fine if you look after it well. As for sleep, well, it feels cozy, it looks good, and it conforms nicely to your body. It's not as breathable as the Baloo or the Bearaby because of the fibre fill, but it's better than those that use thicker minky on both sides of the cover. So overall, I think this is a good option if you're not quite sure what weight to choose, and you just prefer the simplicity of choosing the basic dimensions instead, and also if you just want an elegant and comfortable weighted blanket. Next up, we have the Layla weighted blanket. Now, Layla is a bedding company, and like many other bedding companies, they've gotten in on the weighted blanket action, and I think they've done a really good job in creating just a nice, all-round, well-balanced weighted blanket. Personally, I really like the hexagonal design that Layla uses. The top side has a plush, soft minky that feels really lovely against the skin. The pockets are 6 inches across and they're very robustly stitched, which helps keep the microbeads and the polyfiller in place. The underside is 300 thread count cotton, also feels soft and smooth against the skin, but it does tend to show up any lint that's been floating around. The stitching is fantastic across the whole of the Layla blanket, definitely one of the best in that respect, and it gives me confidence that it will last a long time. Another plus is that the blanket can be machine washed and dried, which is very convenient compared to a couple of others that are coming up later in the review. It's important to note that this is a one-piece weighted blanket with no cover and only comes in black and green at the moment. So although I personally really like it for relaxing on the sofa, do be aware that you can't choose a different colour or material. As for the size options, well, like the Luxome, you don't choose by your body weight, but by the blanket size. They have a twin, queen and king. The one I'm using here is the twin. It's 48 by 72 inches and weighs 15 pounds. I find that it's actually a really good size and dimensions for me. It costs around $100 for the twin, which is a reasonable price as well. Another thing I really like about the Layla is that they have a very generous 120-day money-back guarantee and a 5-year warranty. Both of those are much longer than most companies have for weighted blankets. As for using it when you sleep, well, it's reasonably breathable and it feels soft and it contours nicely to the body, but again, it depends if you like the black and green colour scheme. If not, then you can hide it between your bed sheets, which is also fine to do. So overall, I think the Layla is actually a really good weighted blanket. It'll obviously suit some people more than others because of the lack of options that they have, but it's really well designed, it feels good, and I have one of the best trial periods that I've seen. If you're a hot sleeper like me, look away now or skip to the next section. This is not the one for you. But if you're a cold sleeper or you're looking for a weighted blanket to add a little bit of warmth in the winter, this is a really good option. This is by far the warmest weighted blanket that we've tried. In fact, you really don't need to spend much time underneath this before you start to feel warm again if you've come in from the cold. The first thing to note is that the external cover is made with a really soft minky, which feels great. And it also has these sensory nodes on one side, which are always kind of fun to play around with. The other side is also minky, but it's just flat this time in a different colour. The zip is robust and nicely tucked inside one edge. The inside blanket uses glass microbeads and the compartments are around 6 inches in length and width. They aren't exactly the smallest compartments, but they do the job nicely. The cotton that they use is very thick and robust, but it's not the smoothest, so I probably wouldn't use this one without a cover. The stitching on the internal blanket is good. I've had no issues with it, even after a year's usage. There are 8 loops and ties to keep the cover and the blanket nicely attached, and the loops are well stitched. One major downside is that the inner blanket can't be machine washed, only the external cover can. As for using it around the home, well, the soft and warm feel of the minky and the thickness of the blanket and the polyfill means that this is a really good one to use in the winter time. It's one that we use quite a lot during the day and the evening, and in the winter we often snuggle up under it while watching a movie. In terms of options, one of the things that I really like about Quility is that there's a lot of different sizes and weights to choose from. In fact, there's so many combinations, I can imagine it might be a little bit confusing for some people. But they run from £5 right up to £25. There don't seem to be a £30, but that should be enough to cover most people's weights. And it does mean that there's kids' sizes as well. The price is reasonable. It's going to depend on the size, obviously. But mine, as an example, is 60 by 80 inches and £20, and it cost around $120. And that includes the blanket and cover. Another downside is that there's only a 30-day return window, which is pretty standard with products that are sold on Amazon. but there's no guarantee, there's no year-long guarantee, which for me is a bit of an issue. As for sleep, well, for me this is a really good one to use in the winter, maybe the spring and autumn as well, depending on where you live. You can use it on its own or perhaps combine it with your own bedding for extra warmth. Overall then, this is a good one if you're looking for a soft minky feel and a warm weighted blanket and you're looking for particular sizes. However, you do need to be prepared to hand wash or spot clean or dry clean the internal blanket. Next up, we have the weighted evolution. Now this is one which I think will appeal to people who like shiny things, glossy things, or maybe even sci-fi fans because of this metallic, shiny, glossy exterior that the minky side with all these nodes has. Very, very futuristic feel to it. As I said, my favourite feature of the weighted evolution is the touch sensory dots and the ultra soft minky that they have on the top side. And on the other side, there is bamboo lyocell, which is also very smooth and soft and actually feels a little cooler against the skin. The external stitching is pretty good on the weighted evolution. I inspected it carefully and it seems well constructed and robust. And I like the fact that the zip is well hidden so you don't feel it when you're using the blanket. I also like that for larger sizes there are 12 loops and ties, which helps keep the blanket and the cover in place. But like all heavy weighted blankets, you do need to be careful how you use it, or you can end up damaging the stitching if you put too much strain on them, like I did here. Now I really like the design of the internal blanket. It has very small double stitch pockets, which means that the weight is kept well distributed, and it has just enough fibre fill in each one to spread the beads out and stop them bunching up in the corners. And compared to the more delicate stitching of the cover, the stitching on the internal blanket is very neatly finished, uniform and looks robust. One downside though is that only the external cover can be machine washed, so you'd need to hand wash or spot clean the blanket itself. To use around the home, the weighted evolution is one that looks good and feels cosy enough to use when you're chilling on the sofa, whether that's reading, watching a movie or whatever it might be. It's just one that you wouldn't mind having out on the sofa compared to some of the more basic weighted blankets. They have several different weights, including 8, 12, 15, 20 and 25 pounds, although as you can see, like many brands, they don't always have every weight in stock. As for the price, well, that will depend on the size and the cover you get. For example, mine is the £20 blanket that's 60 by 80 inches, and it currently costs around $150. They have a long trial period of 100 days, which is longer than most, and there's a year-long warranty, which is good to see. To use when you're sleeping, for me, it's in the middle in terms of breathability. Not the coolest, but it's definitely not the warmest either. But it's right up there with the best for how soft and luxurious the external cover feels. So overall, this is a good choice if you like the sensory dot style and the coziness of a soft minky cover, but it perhaps won't be right if you'd prefer to be able to machine wash the internal weighted blanket as well. Finally, we come to the Y&M. Now this is one that I bought as an experiment to see what you could get if you tried to spend as little money as possible on a weighted blanket. And what I found you get is a weighted blanket that weighs what it's supposed to and does its job, but doesn't look or feel particularly special. So let's take a closer look. First thing to note then is that the Y&M internal blanket, which I have here, isn't the smoothest of cottons that I felt. But what I do like about it is that they have a nice tight compartment size. So both sides of the square pattern they've gone for is just under 5 inches. The stitching's actually pretty good as well. I couldn't fault the stitching. I had a look all the way around and didn't find any errors. The entire blanket can be machine washed cold and tumble dried low. I tested it a couple of times and it came out just as it went in. Well, a little bit cleaner obviously. Another thing that I like about Y&M is that they offer a lot of variety in terms of the dimensions and the weight of the internal blanket. So from £5 right up to £30 in different lengths and widths as well. If you like an external cover, they offer cotton and bamboo and minky with or without the sensory nodes and many different colours and patterns as well. The price varies by size, but my £15 blanket, for example, is currently around $70 without a cover. And like the Quility, there's a 30-day returns period, but no additional warranty, unfortunately. In terms of using it around the home, well, I have to say it's not my first choice for relaxing whilst reading or watching TV just because of the lack of softness in the cotton that they've used. And for sleep, well, it's not the most breathable that I've tried, but neither is it the hottest either. There is quite a bit of fibre fill inside those pockets, so some heat does build up, but it could be worse. So for me, it's somewhere in the middle in terms of breathability. So if you're just looking for a basic weighted blanket and you're on a budget, this is a good choice. So there you go, the 7 weighted blankets. I hope that you found this video useful and interesting. If you did and you'd like to buy any of them, please use the links in the description below the video. And please also subscribe to my YouTube channel to keep in touch with me and see future reviews. And if you've got any comments or questions about these blankets, choosing them, or any details that I've missed out or anything that you disagree with, please also feel free to leave a comment, and I always reply to comments, so it'd be good to hear from you. Thanks again, this is Ethan from No Sleepless Nights.